You promise yourself that this time you won't revenge trade. You tell yourself that you won't move your stop loss, that you'll follow your plan and stay disciplined. But then, the trade starts going against you. The pressure builds, the emotions take over, and before you even realize it, you're doing exactly what you promised yourself you wouldn't do. The strange part is, you already know it's wrong. You know the rules. You know what you should do. Yet somehow, in those moments, you lose control. So what's really happening? Is the market causing these mistakes? Or is trading simply exposing something that was already inside you? Hello friends, I'm Priya and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to discuss lesson 41 of the Daily Trading Coach, Psychodynamics. And this lesson reveals something that can completely change the way you look at trading. According to Dr. Steenbarger, many of the emotional reactions we experience in the market don't actually begin in the market. They come from deeper emotional patterns. Patterns that may have been with us for years, patterns that quietly shape our decisions, our reactions, and our behavior under pressure. Most traders spend years trying to fix their trading, without realizing that the real problem may not be their strategy at all. It may be the emotional patterns operating beneath the surface. So in today's lesson, we'll explore how these hidden patterns influence our trading, why the same mistakes keep repeating, and what we can do to finally break the cycle and become more consistent traders. Now the question is, what does psychodynamics actually mean? At first, it sounds like a complicated psychological term, but the idea is actually very simple. It means that many of the emotional reactions we experience today are influenced by experiences from our past. Dr. Steenbarger explains that when we react to a situation, we're not always reacting only to what's happening right now. Sometimes, old experiences are reacting too. Think about it. If someone grows up in an environment where they're supported, encouraged, and trusted, they often develop confidence when facing challenges. But if someone spends years being criticized, constantly judged, or made to feel that they're never good enough, those experiences can leave deep emotional marks. And even though the years pass, those patterns don't automatically disappear. They stay in the background, quietly influencing how we think, how we feel, and how we react under pressure. Then one day, something happens in the present, and without realizing it, it touches one of those old emotional wounds. Suddenly, the reaction becomes much bigger than the situation itself. And this happens in trading all the time. A stop loss gets hit, and instead of seeing it as a normal business expense, it feels like a personal defeat. One losing trade turns into frustration. Frustration turns into anger, and anger turns into revenge trading. Another trader sees a small drawdown and suddenly feels intense fear, not because the loss is huge, but because something deeper has been triggered. This is why two traders can face the exact same market situation, yet react in completely different ways. The market is the same, the charts are the same, but their emotional history is different. Dr. Brett refers to these repeating emotional patterns as co-conflictual relationship themes. The name sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. These are emotional patterns that keep repeating throughout our lives. Different situations, different people, different circumstances, but often the same emotional reaction, and eventually the same result. That's why the most important question isn't, what were you thinking when you made that mistake? The deeper question is, why do you keep reacting that way? Because the moment you understand that pattern, you stop fighting the symptom and start addressing the real cause. And that's what makes psychodynamics such a powerful concept for traders. Friends, sometimes our reaction is much bigger than the situation itself. A small loss, and it ruins our entire day. One trade goes against us, and suddenly we're frustrated, anxious, or emotionally exhausted. The strange part is, the situation itself often isn't that serious. So why does the reaction feel so intense? According to Dr. Steenbarger, many times the answer lies in our past. To explain this idea, he shares a personal story from his own life. Dr. Brett grew up in a loving family. There was support, care, and a strong sense of security. But he also developed a habit. Whenever he felt stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally pressured, he preferred being alone. He would go for long bike rides, or spend extra time in the shower. That became his natural way of coping with stress. Over time, it stopped being just a habit. It became a pattern. Years later, when he was married and raising children, he noticed something interesting. Whenever life became stressful, he would automatically start pulling away from the people around him. He spent more time alone. He took longer showers. He interacted less with his family. And then he realized something important. He wasn't consciously choosing this behavior. He was simply repeating an old emotional pattern. A pattern that had been with him for years. And that's exactly what happens to many traders. Quite often, the market isn't creating the emotional reaction. It's simply activating something that already exists beneath the surface. A stop loss gets hit, and suddenly it feels personal. A losing trade feels like proof that we're not good enough. A drawdown feels like failure. And before we realize what's happening, our emotions start making decisions for us. That's why self-awareness is one of the most important skills in trading. The next time you experience a strong emotional reaction, pause for a moment. Instead of asking, "What is the market doing to me?" ask yourself, "Why am I reacting this strongly?" Because many times, the market is only the trigger. The real cause may be an old emotional pattern, quietly operating in the background. And the moment you recognize that pattern, you take the first step toward lasting change. But that brings up an important question. How do you actually recognize those patterns? How do you know whether a strong emotional reaction is really coming from the market or from something much deeper? Dr. Brett Steenbarger says that just like a good trading coach looks beyond the mistake, we also need to look beyond our emotions and understand where they are coming from. Think about it. The fear, the frustration, the anger that shows up during trading. Have you felt those emotions somewhere else before? Has there ever been a trading loss that made you feel the same way you felt after a major failure in life? Or the same way you felt after being rejected by someone important? If the answer is yes, then there's a good chance you're not reacting only to the market. You're also reacting to an older emotional experience that the market has unknowingly triggered. To help traders uncover these hidden patterns, Dr. Brett suggests a very simple exercise. Take a sheet of paper and draw two separate waves. Each wave should have at least 4 high points and 4 low points. The first wave represents your emotional life. At the high points, write down moments when you felt happiness, confidence, pride, or personal growth. At the low points, write down times when you felt rejection, guilt, loneliness, or emotional pain. Now draw the second wave. This one represents your trading journey. At the high points, write down your best trades, your smartest decisions, or periods when everything seemed to be going well. At the low points, write down your biggest losses, impulsive trades, or moments when fear and panic took over. Once both waves are complete, take a close look at them. Compare them carefully. Do you notice any similarities? Do the same emotions that appeared in your personal life also show up in your trading? For example, was there a frustration you once felt because of a difficult boss that now gets triggered after a losing trade? Or perhaps a fear of rejection from childhood that now appears whenever you have to make an important trading decision? Because very often, the emotions we experience in trading are not entirely new. They're simply old patterns showing up in a new environment. Because once you begin recognizing these patterns, many of your trading behaviors suddenly start making sense. And that's where real change begins. After all, it's very difficult to change a behavior that you don't fully understand. Most traders focus only on what they did wrong. But Dr. Brett encourages us to ask a deeper question. Why did we react that way in the first place? Because the answer is often hidden beneath the surface. That's why the exercise we just discussed is so valuable. When you compare the emotional highs and lows of your life with the emotional highs and lows of your trading, you often discover connections that were invisible before. Suddenly, certain patterns start standing out. Maybe you've spent your whole life trying to prove yourself to others. And now, every losing trade feels like a personal judgment. Maybe you've always struggled with criticism, and that's why accepting a trading mistake feels so painful. Maybe you've spent years seeking approval, and now you find yourself measuring your self-worth through your trading results. Or perhaps you've always been uncomfortable with rules and restrictions, which is why following a trading plan feels much harder than it should. The pattern may look different for every trader, but the principle remains the same. Many of the emotional challenges we face in trading didn't begin in trading. Trading simply reveals them. And once you see that, your mistakes stop looking random. They start looking predictable. You begin to understand why certain situations trigger fear, why some losses create anger, why specific market conditions tempt you to break your rules. And that awareness is incredibly powerful, because when you can see the pattern, you finally have the opportunity to change it. That's what makes this exercise so valuable. It doesn't just teach you about your trading, it teaches you about yourself. And sometimes, that self-understanding can improve your trading more than any indicator, strategy, or chart pattern ever could. So friends, the biggest lesson from today's chapter is simple. Many times, the problem isn't the market. The problem isn't the strategy. And sometimes, it isn't even a lack of discipline. The real challenge lies much deeper. It lies in the emotional patterns that we've been carrying for years. Patterns that quietly shape our reactions, our decisions, and our behavior under pressure. That's why lasting improvement in trading doesn't come only from studying charts. It also comes from understanding yourself. Because when you understand your emotional triggers, your fears, your frustrations, and the stories you've been telling yourself for years, you gain something far more valuable than a better trading system. You gain self-awareness, and self-awareness is where real transformation begins. The goal is not to become emotionless. The goal is to become aware. Aware of what's happening inside you before it takes control of your decisions. Because the moment you can recognize a pattern, you create the opportunity to change it. And the moment you can change it, you take one more step toward becoming the trader you want to be. So the next time the market triggers a strong emotional reaction, don't just look at the chart. Take a moment and look within. You may discover that the market isn't showing you something about the market at all. It may be showing you something about yourself. And sometimes, that insight can be worth more than any winning trade. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this lesson valuable, please like the video and share it with fellow traders who might benefit from it. And if you don't want to miss the upcoming lessons from the Daily Trading Coach, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next lesson. Until then, stay disciplined, stay self-aware, and keep growing as a trader.